And you are watching GVTV News.
Thanks, Renette, and I'm Randy Hansen. In World News headlines today: 16 arrested at Occupy Wall Street protest outside Goldman Sachs. An arrest total after Oakland strike reaches at least 80. And 30 D.C. protesters occupy Senator McConnell's office. And monster increase in carbon dioxide level in 2010. And Syria continues deadly attack on Homs despite peace deal. And father of Bahraini opposition figure dies after beating. And Israel to freeze funding for UNESCO. And United Nations defends the Palestinian effort to join UNESCO. And a report says UK, France, and Colombia to abstain on Palestinian statehood vote. And Nicaragua and Guatemala to hold presidential elections. And Cuba opens way for home ownership. And 46,000 parents of U.S.-born children deported in early 2011. And House Democrat challenged new voter ID laws. And Japan to give nuclear plant operator TEPCO $11.5 billion. And John Corzine resigns from MF Global. But before these stories, GVTV News would like to thank one of our underwriters who supports your only visual video news media in Nevada County. That's right, it's us, GVTV News. In today's first world news story, in the latest news from Occupy Wall Street, at least 16 people were arrested Thursday while protesting outside New York City headquarters of Goldman Sachs. Among those arrested were journalist Chris Hedges and performance artist and activist Reverend Billy. In California, Oakland police are now saying at least 80 protesters were arrested late Wednesday and early Thursday following the general strike. While the main protest was peaceful, clashes broke out between police and a small group of protesters at night. The storefronts of several banks and stores were vandalized. In Washington, D.C., about 30 protesters occupied part of the office of Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell Thursday to protest Republican opposition to President Obama's jobs bill. Protesters were from the new group called RDC. Protests came as Senate Republicans blocked $60 billion in funding for roads and infrastructure projects Republicans opposed the bill because it relied on surtax on people earning more than $1 million a year. The U.S. Department of Energy says global output of carbon dioxide, a greenhouse gas that causes more heat to be trapped in the atmosphere, has soared to the largest amount on record, higher than the worst-case scenario outlined by scientists from the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Changes just 4 years ago. Total amount of carbon pumped into the air globally jumped by 6% in 2010. One scientist described it as a monster increase. Pollution from China and the United States accounted for more than half the increase in emissions last year. And news from Syria: dozens of people have been killed in the city of Homs since Thursday, despite Syria's agreement to end the bloodshed. Earlier yesterday, Syrian forces in tanks renewed artillery fire in the flashpoint Baba Amir district of the city. In Bahrain, The 70-year-old father of prominent opposition figure died Thursday, a day after he was attacked by riot police. Ali Hassan al-Dahi, I think it was father of Hussein al-Dahi, deputy with the Bahrain's largest Shiite opposition group. And Israel has announced it will join the United States in freezing funding for UNESCO following Monday's vote to grant the Palestinian membership in the UN cultural body. Israel had previously pledged $2 million annually to UNESCO. Mark Regev, spokesperson for the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, said government budgets that were earmarked for UNESCO will now go to support projects, regional projects, Middle East projects designed to encourage cooperation in science, culture, and education. These projects will bolster peace and not undermine peace, as done by the recent decision by UNESCO. Besides freezing funding for UNESCO, Israel has ordered the construction of 2,000 new settlement homes on occupied land and suspended the transfer of tax revenue it collected for the Palestinians. Riyad Mansour, the Palestinian ambassador, well, anyway, that's all I got on that story. The BBC is reporting the Palestinian effort to achieve full membership at the United Nations has been dealt a possible setback. A UN diplomat told the BBC that Britain, France, and Colombia have told UN Security Council members they would abstain in any vote on Palestinian membership. Voters in Nicaragua and Guatemala head to the polls on Sunday. In Nicaragua, President Daniel Ortega is projected to win a second consecutive term. He heads the Sandinista National Liberation Front. In Guatemala, retired General Otto Perez is leading in the polls. If elected, General Perez will become the first former military official to win the presidency in Guatemala since the end of the military dictatorships in 1986. The Cuban government announced a major economic reform Thursday. For the first time since the 1959 revolution, Cuba is allowed Cubans to buy and sell their own homes. Cuban officials have expressed hope that the rule change will generate new tax revenue and spur new housing development. A new investigation by the Applied Research Center has revealed that the Obama administration deported 46,000 parents of U.S.-born children during the first 6 months of this year. The data on parental deportation does not reveal how many children each of these parents had or whether their children remained in the United States or left with their parents. The center estimates that at least 5,100 children in foster care who face barriers to family reunification because their mother or father have been detained or deported. And House Democrats have written letters to all 50 secretaries of state to oppose new voter identification laws that would make voting more difficult. Republican lawmakers in a number of states have passed laws that require specific types of photo identification to cast ballots, reduction in the number of early voting days, and tougher laws on collecting registrations. Democratic Representative Steny Hoyer of Maryland said empowering people to vote, enhancing their ability to vote, ought to be our agenda, not impeding or undermining their right to vote. Well, I don't think they're doing that. I think they just want ID so you can prove these people are real. Japanese government has announced it will give $11.5 billion to public money to the nuclear power facility operator TEPCO to help the company deal with the fallout from the meltdown at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant. Along with the huge cost of reconstruction, closing the plant, and decontamination, TEPCO faces billions of dollars in compensation from claims from people and businesses affected by the nuclear crisis. And CNBC is reporting MF Global has announced the resignation of John Corzine days after the company filed for one of the largest corporate bankruptcies in U.S. history. And that's it for World News today. Now another thanks to one of our underwriters who supports your only visual video news media in Nevada County. That's right, it's us, GVTV News.
Soundcheck Music Center, the rock and roll connection. We have guitars, amps, drum equipment, sound accessories, lessons, and repairs. We are located at 671 Maltman Drive, Grass Valley. 530-272-7236, open 7 days a week.
something happening here, but what it is ain't exactly clear. There's a man with a gun over there, telling me I got to beware.
That's right, it's time for the police blotter. Pictures in the blotter not from these actual events, but used for visual aid only. Grass Valley Police Department on Wednesday. At 8:21 a.m., caller from 400 block of Sutton Way reported graffiti on a building. 8:21 a.m., caller from 100 block of Spree Avenue reported theft of a compressor and chainsaw. And 10:03 a.m., caller from Scandling Avenue and East Main Street reported graffiti on a stop sign. And 10:33 a.m., caller from 100 block of Maryland Drive reported a battery. 11:16 a.m., caller from Neal Street reported 5 or 6 people smoking marijuana who were gone when officers arrived. And 11:57 a.m., a caller from 500 block of Escaton Circle reported a possible fire, which was found to be smoke from burnt food that the resident was airing out. At 12:03 p.m., several callers from South Auburn Street reported a vehicle with vicious dogs. And 12:10 p.m., caller from 200 block of East Main Street reported a man pushed a person and then threatened the caller before leaving the scene. And 12:49 p.m., caller from 200 block in North Auburn Street reported 2 loose dogs, one which was aggressive. And 12:59 p.m., caller from 500 block of Whiting Street reported a man yelling that he wanted more food and he was angry at the government. And 2:10 p.m., caller from 1400 block East Main Street reported a shoplifter. And 2:58 p.m., caller from 400 block of South Auburn Street reported 4 boys trespassing, who then fled. And 3:45 p.m., caller from Condon Park reported finding a used condom and then finding a man in the woman's restroom doing drugs. 4:08 p.m., a man from 100 block of King Court reported a man threw a gas can at him and was breaking things in a house. And 5:58 p.m., caller from 300 block of Mill Street reported a man embezzled $110. At 9:34 p.m., caller from South Auburn and Bank Street reported a man spraying the driveway. He was arrested on suspicion of being drunk in public. Nevada County Sheriff's Office on Wednesday, 8:42 a.m., a man from 12,000 block of Brunswick Road reported an altercation with no injuries. At 10:12 a.m., a caller from 13,000 block of Meadow Drive reported a tenant who had been evicted took appliances, cabinets, light fixtures, and heating system, the dishwasher, interior doors, and the front door. 10:28 a.m., a woman from 13,000 block of Highway 49 reported harassment and vandalism. 11:08 a.m., a caller from 18,000 block of Indian Springs Road reported a possible stalking. 11:36 a.m., a caller from Rattlesnake Road reported vandalism and burglary to a property. And 3:21 p.m., a caller from 10,000 block of Carriage Road reported theft of an engagement ring by an ex-fiancé. 3:45 p.m., caller from Limekiln Road reported possible ongoing child abuse. And 4:02 p.m., caller from East Bennett Road requested extra patrols for transients. And 6:02 p.m., a caller from 14,000 block of Towel Lane reported a house was burglarized and 2 sets of silverware were missing, as were other silver items. And 6:52 p.m., a caller from 14,000 block of Star Drive reported hearing a gunshot. And 7:26 p.m., a caller from Rollins Lake reported possible poached deer. And 7:46 p.m., a woman from 15,000 block of Cascade Loop reported her adult son just punched a hole in the bedroom door. At 9:44 p.m., a woman from 10,000 block of C Street reported a suspicious person in her yard. At 9:49 p.m., a woman from Highway 20 at Lone Grave reported a man was following her, tried to cut her off at Lake of the Pines, and had followed her ever since. She headed back to town, and CHP was advised. At 11:11 p.m., a caller from Highway 49 and Nishinam Gulch Road reported a loose goat in the road. 2:04 a.m., caller reported a vehicle tried to run animal control officers off the road. The goat was taken into custody. And Thursday, 11:48 a.m., caller from Camellia Way and Torrey Pines Drive reported an attempted burglary to a vehicle. In Nevada City Police Department on Wednesday, 7:16 p.m., caller from 300 block of Sacramento Street reported 3 men and a woman urinated on the side of a building. Thursday, 4:58 a.m., a woman from Gethsemane Street reported a woman was trying to kill her. She could not be located. And that's it for the blotter today. Now, another thanks to one of our underwriters who supports your only visual video news media in Nevada County. You guessed it, it's us, GVTV News. In local news headlines today, Penn Valley man arrested on suspicion of sexual abuse of a girl. The Nevada County Courthouse moves to restrict demonstrators. And pot ordinance scheduled for discussion. In today's first local story, Penn Valley man was taken into custody Wednesday on suspicion of continual sexual abuse of a child after investigation by the Nevada County Sheriff's Major Crimes Unit. Deputies served a search warrant at a man's home and seized a number of items for evidence, including computers, said Sheriff's Captain Jeff Powell. The alleged charges involve a 12-year-old girl, but Powell declined to release any other information as this is an ongoing investigation. The man is being held in county jail in lieu of a $75,000 bail. In a story written by Liz Keller of the Union, Nevada County Superior Court has issued an order prohibiting expressive activities inside county courthouse or on courthouse grounds. Formal written policy, which is being circulated for signature by the court judges, comes in the wake of a free speech flap involving a group known as Family Court Reformers. 2 reform advocates were asked to leave the courthouse by Court Executive Officer Sean Matroka after they entered the building October 5th and allegedly were warned they could be cited for misdemeanors for obstructing business. Organizer Emily Gallup and volunteer Don Bessay have been on the courthouse steps for several months handing out flyers to people heading to family court orientation on Tuesday and to family court hearings on Wednesdays. Gallup, a former family court mediator, was fired December 2010. She filed a grievance and won an arbitration award, ordered an audit of family court, but the award was overturned at the end of April. Gallup, who alleges the court violated state statutes and its own rules, has a wrongful termination suit filed in Superior Court, which would likely not be heard until April of 2012. Following their ouster from the courthouse, Bessie and Gallup contacted the American Civil Liberties Union, which sent Matroka a letter last week that delineated its concerns over a possible violation of constitutional free speech rights and the requests the court and its staff not interfere with peaceful free speech activities. ACLU staff attorney Linda Lai wrote that the advocates' activities were protected by the First Amendment and there was no valid basis for asking them to leave the courthouse. Prohibiting Gallup and Bessie from passing out leaflets inside the building may amount to viewpoint discrimination, since the brochures advocate family court reform and you and Miss Gallup are adversaries in a pending lawsuit, Lai wrote. The Supreme Court had long held that protected speech may not be regulated merely because a government official disagrees with the speech's content. Matroka contends state law prohibits impeding anyone access to court services. The U.S. District Court has concluded that state courthouses are non-public forums. Matroka wrote in an email, "The government can control access so long as their regulations are reasonable, and that the interest in free expression does not outweigh the strong interest in ensuring that the courthouse was free from actual or perceived partiality and was safe and easily accessible to the members of the public that had business there." The family court reformers do not have the right to hand out the material inside the courthouse without the court's permission, Matroka said, adding that they were not singled out and their removal was part of a long-standing policy. An attorney from the administrative office of the courts has responded to the letter, Matroka said, and my understanding is they corrected the ACLU attorney's understanding of the facts, he said, adding the ACLU letter stated incorrectly that Gallup and Bassi had been distributing brochures inside the courthouse for several months. That was simply not true, Matroka said. They had been on the front steps except for that one day when I asked them to leave. That point is important because this is not a past practice that had been allowed. It has been among our policies not to allow that. Formal policy recommended by ACLU and ACLU attorney recommended we issue a formal written policy regarding expressive activities such as demonstrations, distributions, and solicitations in and around the courthouse, Matroka added. That has been done and is currently being routed to the judges for signature. The order issued by the court is intended to ensure the safe and orderly use of court facilities to minimize activities which unreasonably disrupt, interfere, or interfere with the orderly and peaceful conduct of the court business in a neutral forum free of actual or perceived partial, bias, prejudice, or favoritism, to provide for the fair and orderly conduct of hearings and trials, to promote the free flow of pedestrians and vehicular traffic on sidewalks and streets around court facilities, and to maintain proper judicial decorum. And that was one sentence. Order is intended to facilitate access to the courthouse and will be enforced in a content-neutral fashion. Prohibited activities included demonstrating, picketing, proselytizing, distributing literature or other materials to the general public, soliciting sale and donation, or engaging in protest, education, or counseling, according to the order. Those activities will be prohibited within the county courthouse as well as within 8 feet from the doorways to the courthouse. No one will be allowed to obstruct, harass, or interfere with people entering or leaving or waiting in line to enter, or approach anyone waiting in line within 8 feet without their consent. Amplification equipment is also prohibited if it is used in a harassing or interfering manner, according to the order. ACLU dropping issue, Matroka said. According to Matroka, the ACLU is not planning any further action. Representatives from ACLU did not return calls for comment. They agreed to drop the issue because there isn't an issue to address, Matroka added. Matroka insisted the new general order does not target the family court reformers and that similar written policies are in place for many county courts. This issue is far bigger than Emily and her current campaign, he said. This is not directed specifically at Emily. This is trying to preserve access to the courthouse and the impartiality of courthouse. It's not intended to do anything but that. The real issue is not whether or not the court agrees with a particular activity or whether there's any merit to the claim that we violated their constitutional rights, Matroka added. Courthouses are a non-public forum. For their part, the family court reformers have resumed their court-watching activities, Bessie said, although they are not trying to distribute any brochures inside the courthouse. Bessie had not seen a court's general order and said he was concerned about the restrictions. We want to understand what the rules are and operate within them, he said, adding, we're going to reach out to some other groups and let them know this is transpiring. In another Liz Keller story out of the Union, Sample County ordinance to regulate marijuana cultivation is on the agenda for the Board of Supervisors meeting Tuesday afternoon. The push for such an ordinance has come from county residents concerned about grows in residential neighborhoods, such as a large marijuana garden on a vacant lot on Annie Drive in Alta Sierra. The proposed county-wide ordinance is a sample draft for discussion only at Tuesday's meeting, emphasized County Counsel Allison Barrett Green. The agenda item, which is being brought to the board by the Nevada County Sheriff's Keith Royal asked the board to consider the adoption of medical marijuana cultivation regulations, with County Council working with the Sheriff's Office to develop the ordinance. Regardless of how many patients are growing for, marijuana gardens should be limited to 6 plants in residential zones, 25 plants in any other zone. Those limitations would apply to collectives or cooperatives as well. The proposal places significant limitations on where grows can be located. Indoor and outdoor grows would not be allowed within 1,000 feet of any school, school bus stop, school evacuation site, church park, child care center, or youth-oriented facility. Grows would not be allowed within 100 feet of any residence at a separate parcel owned by another person or in a mobile home park within 100 feet of an occupied mobile home under separate ownership. Outdoor grows would not be visible from public right-of-way or publicly traveled private road or within 50 feet of a legal parcel owned by someone else. Other restrictions include noise, light, and odor restrictions, as well as building of a 6-foot opaque fence for outdoor gardens and setbacks from property lines. The owner or tenant must register with the Sheriff's Office and provide proof of a current valid recommendation. If the parcel is rented, the owner must provide written consent to the grow. The Board of Supervisors could establish a fee for registration. A zip tie purchase provision is included in the language of the ordinance, but is worded as an option for the convenience of a property owner and to assist in the enforcement of this ordinance and to avoid the unnecessary confiscation and destruction rather than a requirement. The proposed ordinance also set forth an abatement process for anyone not in compliance. That's it. We're thanking another underwriter here. Christopher's Old World Deli and Catering Company has brought its delicious food and service downtown Grass Valley. Do you like desserts? They got them. You like international style lunches? They got them. Christopher's Deli and Catering for parties, get-togethers, weddings, or whatever. Open 7 days a week.